My name is Daniel Webster. I'm Bloomberg Professor of American Health and also a distinguished scholar with the Center for Gun Violence Solutions. My bachelor's degree was in psychology with a special emphasis on health issues. I did a short stint as a social worker in a part of fairly poor rural part of Kentucky, and mostly managed issues dealing with child abuse, maltreatment, domestic violence, those types of things. And it just so happened that my office was in the same building with the local health department. I discovered public health and actually found that the health department, and particularly the public health nurse, was probably my best resource to help some of the families that I was dealing with. And that motivated me to get my graduate training in public health. I came to Hopkins in the late 1980s and early 1990s. First, to generally study a field of injury prevention, but then when I was here, Baltimore was engulfed in an epidemic of gun violence, principally affecting young people, particularly young black individuals. And it was clear to me then that my focus was going to be on gun violence. It was a public health crisis that impacted not only mortality, but mental health and even the capability of a city to function well and keep its citizens healthy and safe. You know, our center is a very unique one. We are grounded in the best academic research possible. My role is principally focused on conducting research that answers really important and big questions about how we can effectively reduce gun violence. I take pride also in my own ability to communicate that research in ways to various audiences so that rather than it just be in an academic journal, that it impacts policy. Our center is unique in its ability to do effective communication and advocacy using science. We have legal scholars, which is more and more important these days. We have communications experts and advocacy experts. It really enables us to make sure that we are doing the most relevant research and that our research informs policies and programs to address the problem of gun violence. So the de-stressor and the thing that distracts me from thinking about gun violence all the time is my dog and baseball. My family, we're big into baseball. I played in high school and college. My son played in high school and college, and he's a coach. I also love to exercise. I'm both a cyclist and a swimmer. You know, again, I spend way too much time in some ways thinking about a problem as horrific as gun violence. It can be almost an obsession to think about it constantly. So it's great to have these other diversions and other ways to enrich your life. I mean, I do feel enriched with the work that I do to prevent gun violence, but I have a great family, I have a wonderful dog, and I have baseball to distract myself. And there's so much data there to work with in baseball that that also is neat. You know, I come to gun violence as a social scientist, love to pour into the data and the analytics, and then when I turn my sights to baseball, I can sort of do the same thing and get all nerdy with the data, baseball data. I was a catcher. I don't look like a catcher because I'm rather slim these days, but I used to be about 30 pounds heavier, a little stockier guy, and I played catcher. Grew up watching, one of my idol was Johnny Bench, and a Hall of Fame catcher with the Cincinnati Reds. I grew up about an hour from Cincinnati, so he was the local star, and of course I wanted to be like him, so I was a catcher. I and other members of our faculty have been studying these policies for actually probably more than almost 2 decades now. And we have found that these firearm purchaser licensing laws are effective in reducing all forms of gun violence: homicides, suicides, mass shootings, shootings involving law enforcement officers, both as victims and as shooters. And we also see that the key mechanism by which it reduces many of these forms of gun violence is it reduces firearm trafficking, or the guns being diverted for criminal use. So it's a type of policy that keeps guns away from the most risky situations, individuals with histories of violence or other kind of context that really elevates risk for violence. Much of my work these days focuses on community violence intervention programs. These are programs obviously connected in communities where violence is the greatest, and those programs try to build capacity to reach the individuals at highest risk for shooting or being shot, and to try to steer them away from violence, mediate disputes, and in a longer term way, try to redirect the trajectories of the lives of those high-risk individuals into safer kind of lifestyles. So I've been studying community violence intervention in Baltimore since 2007 and continue to do that today. And we've learned a great deal from it. We've seen some really impressive success stories in some of the communities with the highest rates of gun violence, seeing reductions of approximately 40% in some cases. But we've also seen some neighborhoods with community violence intervention programs that aren't getting the results that we hoped for. So a lot of our work right now is focused on better understanding what does it take to be successful in reducing community gun violence with these types of programs. What's the best program models? What's the best ways to implement those programs? And then importantly, even what's the right context that you need? Often these are portrayed as alternatives to law enforcement. I actually think that they are complements to law enforcement. And I think one thing that I'm seeing in the data that makes sense to me is that when law enforcement fails a community, it is very difficult for community violence intervention programs to be successful. You need both of these things working well to reduce a problem as large and complex as gun violence. I joined the faculty in 1992 and designed a course that I began teaching in 1993 called Understanding and Preventing Violence. To my understanding, my own research is that it was the first course ever in a school of public health focused on preventing violence. The whole idea of public health engagement in the issue of violence was relatively new, and I was determined to help students at Johns Hopkins understand violence and apply some of the basic understandings and principles and methods of public health to this very unique type of problem. One of the things that I am most proud about my own career is that I trained a very large number of people who are leaders in the field now, some of them within our own center. So I do feel like very, very proud and passionate about the educational role that I've played, and then more broadly our center has played in teaching public health students about gun violence and how to prevent it. I now teach a course called Crafting Effective Solutions to Gun Violence. It's a problem-solving seminar, and it's so fun. We really roll up our sleeves, we get way beyond theory or any research study, and we talk to people actually engaged in trying to prevent gun violence in different kinds of roles and settings. We talk about the political hurdles, the practical hurdles, resource constraints, so many challenges. So I think we are particularly proud and unique in the role we have played in training public health students about gun violence and how to prevent it.